Hi, this is Congressman Tom Cole, 4th District of Oklahoma. This is another one of our congressional chats, or weekly chats, and sometimes not weekly, but it depends on what's going on in Congress. It's actually been a pretty busy and consequential week. The big event of the week was the passage today, Thursday, of this Senate budget resolution and House budget resolution that opened the door for what's called the Reconciliation Act. And that's what's now commonly referred to as the One Big Beautiful Bill. That bill hasn't been written yet, but we know the component pieces of it. There'll be a substantial increase on a one-time basis for defense, for border security. There'll be a very substantial tax reduction portion. A lot of that will go toward extending the 2017 Trump tax cuts, and there'll also be some different components of that we've heard about. We're not sure what the combination would be, but no tax on tips, no tax on overtimes would be two of the big components for sure. And then there will be some, I wouldn't even call them spending cuts, I would call them spending reforms and savings. In many cases will be waste, fraud, and abuse, something that wherever you are in the political spectrum, you should be supportive of. There's been a lot of discussion about Social Security and Medicare. Neither one of them are likely to be considered in this legislation at all. The President has made unequivocal commitments to not cut benefits in Social Security and Medicare and in Medicaid. I think Medicaid will get looked at simply because it's growing so rapidly. You wouldn't cut it, you would increase or decrease the rate of growth over what's currently projected and allow revenue generated through a robust economy to cut up, but to catch up and with expenses. That's actually pretty much the Trump agenda, those three things: border security, enhanced defense, tax cuts, and cutting of waste, fraud, and abuse. So this really is the essence of the president's program. There's a lot of pressure and emphasis on getting this done early so that those reforms have a chance to sink into the economy and stimulate investment and growth. So I think things are actually moving along. And every time somebody says Mike Johnson's not going to get something passed, or the Republican conference's margin is too narrow, or they can't find a way, we've been able to overcome those so far. And so I'm pretty optimistic going forward. I actually think the next phase, challenging and complex though will be pretty exciting for most Republicans, because they think they have a chance to actually do something consequential that the president ran on. And so we've gone through a lot of preparation to be here. We actually began preparing about a year ago at this time for what will we do if we win the Senate, if President Trump wins the presidency. Those things have happened, but we've been planning for them long before they happen. And so we're actually in the House in a very good position to move ahead. Second thing we did, something I'm surprised is as controversial as it seems to be, but we want to protect your ballot access and security. So we passed something today through the House called the SAVE Act, which simply means you have to have some identification when you register to vote. Nothing wrong with that. And I think most Americans, statistically, on all polls, favor doing this. If you get on an airplane, guess what? You show a driver's license. You go down to vote, you should have some sort of acceptable identification. Doesn't have to be a driver's license. Might be a passport, might be Social Security card. I don't know what it would be, but the reality is, having that framework where everybody knows the person casting the vote is an American citizen, I think is a good thing. And so I certainly supported it. Every member of our delegation supported it, and we'll see how it does in the United States Senate. But I don't see anybody seriously arguing that this would hinder ballot access. Finally, there were a lot of Oklahomans in town this week. I'm very proud. The Norman Chamber of Commerce and Fly-In Group was here. I had an opportunity to visit with them and answer questions. So did other members of our delegation. I think it's a great thing when people from the 4th District come into town. Norman does this regularly, Lawton does this regularly, of course Oklahoma City does it regularly. Some of our smaller communities do as well. And it gives them a chance to talk not just to me, but to both our United States senators and to other members of the delegation. We genuinely all care about the entire state, no matter which parts of it we represent. So all those things were successful. This has been a pretty big week for the president. I think, he's obviously raised the tariff issue, and that's caused some turmoil in the stock market, but all's well that ends well. And right now, I think things have ended pretty well. Countries are coming to the United States wanting to renegotiate deals. The whole world knows that the trade system has been tilted against the United States for decades. The president's trying to do that, and I think he'll have a lot of success in the months ahead in renegotiating trade arrangements. The United States is the richest market in the world by far. Everybody wants access to it, and the American people ought to benefit from that, not lose with one-sided or unfair trading practices. Probably the great exception to that was China, which chose to retaliate against the United States. The president's doubled down, and look, China's not a country that plays by the rules or has played by the rules over the last 2 decades. They routinely steal our intellectual property. They're saber rattling in the Western Pacific, threatening to invade Taiwan. They've frankly bankrupted a lot of countries around the world. We see them interfering with free access to the Panama Canal to some degree, or the potential threat of that. So I think the president's going to play pretty tough on the China front, not just in this particular trade negotiation, but going forward, unless we can establish a new and more equitable playing field for relationship between the two countries. And I think, frankly, he has a lot of support from the American people in that. Again, across the political aisle, we've seen a lot of interesting clips of former Speaker Pelosi earlier in her career being tough on China. And actually, historically, she has been. If you remember, when she was Speaker, she made a point of going to Taiwan even when the Chinese warned her not to. So this area that we actually can cooperate with one another on. We have a very bipartisan select committee set up by former Speaker McCarthy on China. Members of both parties on that particular committee are very, very serious and cooperate across partisan lines, even in this period of intense partisan division. So again, somehow I think the president's got most of the world coming to us to negotiate with us to try and create a more equitable playing field in terms of our trade relations. And I think to some degree he's isolated China and put them in a difficult negotiating position. But again, all that's well and good. Probably, again, the big news of the week was simply getting this budget resolution cost, which moves us to the next stage of negotiating tax cuts, negotiated spending reforms, strengthening our hand at our own border, and enhancing our own national security. And we're going to have a pretty vigorous debate in the next couple of months over what a piece of legislation that could do all those different things would actually look like. We've got a pretty good framework developed in the Republican House. We'll see how that goes as we get down to specifics. So any deal like this, the devil is indeed in the details. I expect a lot of give and take, but if we don't get this done, Americans will face the largest tax increase in American history. I don't think Republicans are likely to let that happen, and it would, frankly, I think, be pretty jarring for our economy. We certainly don't need that. We're still an economy in recovery from 4 years of excess spending, over-regulation, I think general mismanagement by the Biden administration, mismanagement that gave us the highest rate of inflation in 40 years. So a lot to do here, but I would say this week, at least, there was significant progress in the right direction. So I look forward to visiting about all of these different matters with you as we go forward. In the meantime, Congress is off for a 2-week break, so your family, your property, and your lives are safe. Congress is out of session, and that's probably a good thing, but it's out of session on a high note, having actually accomplished something and I think moved the ball forward for the American people. In the meantime, good luck. God bless. I hope you and your family are well. I look forward to visiting with you again soon.